Hi, and welcome to the Indie Music Podcast, the podcast for independent musicians and other audio professionals. We're your hosts. I'm Matt Denton, also known as Mojo of Ragged Birds Music. I'm a Bay Area mix engineer and recording artist. And Douglas Reynolds of Resonance Mastering, a mastering engineer in Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome to Indie Music Podcast, episode 223. Tonight, Matt and Doug talk about workflows. Matt uncovers the torrid truth that he still uses the Eudora email client. He also talks about some changes to his studio workflow. Doug talks about aspects of moving to hybrid mastering, pain points, learning opportunities, and new workflows. Enjoy the show.
Yo.
There you are.
Hey. I'm here. I'm sitting here balancing my checkbook.
Are you?
Yep. And every time I turn the page, I go check.
Sounds like a juggling act.
Oh, hey, man.
Hey, it's a good day. I got my headphones on and a microphone in my face. You know,
Yeah, that makes
everything all right.
that's a good
You
day.
put the headphones on and
I-
the whole energy changes.
It's true. It does.
That's my ice water.
Oh, this is my gin and tonic. So how you been? How's your week going?
Good. I have not much to report. I mean, it's just another week, so
Sure.
not really anything I would call exciting, worthy of podcasting about.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm trying not to take on anything new at work because I got a 5-day weekend coming up. Woo.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice. 2 of the days are already spoken for with family outings, which is good. We don't get many of those these days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, other than
I
that.
feel short on words tonight.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. I just thought we would go with the flow,
Yeah. Well, I know we talked about what we might riff on tonight, which is actually, I've been looking forward to it. But I really don't know how or what I'm going to say about our topic. So it's just going to be a surprise to me.
It'll be a surprise to me too. See, I was trying to set you up there and you just didn't. I threw you a pass and you didn't catch it.
Well, I was waiting for
A better one.
how's your level? And then I was going to go into, well, how's your workflow?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't asked you that this week, huh? How's your level? I can hear your level is great. Your microphone level anyway.
Okay. I'm sitting back a little bit further.
Yeah.
I ditched the noise gate altogether. I'm tired of it. It's a pain in the butt. And because I don't have a really high noise floor, but what it does mean is that I have to turn off the AC.
Oh,
So, and the only time I'm really concerned about the AC is when I'm recording.
right.
The other times it doesn't
Well,
really.
it's not real hot there yet, is it? I mean, we had
No, not too bad, but it's getting up there. I don't know what it was warm enough for AC today.
Yeah, it was like 78 here, but then now it's windy.
It was 81.
Oh, is that normal for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
End of May. Can you believe it's the end of May? I cannot. I'm still writing April on stuff, so it's like now it's about to be June. What the heck?
Yeah, it's cruising by. I mean, coming off of vacation, it's just sort of split up May for me. And I made a point to make every day as long as possible while I was on vacation, and it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
And that didn't mean staying up late. It just meant like being involved in the moment and then what we were doing for the day and just not thinking about tomorrow and all that stuff and planning and everything. And actually I'd like to incorporate some of that into my regular days.
Yeah.
But except when I want things to end as fast as possible.
Yeah, I do find, it's a weird, it's elusive though, right? Like you try to find that balance. You want to get stuff done, and you want to have structured time to get stuff done. But when you have unstructured time, sometimes that's when you can enjoy it more because it doesn't go by as quickly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find that sweet spot, but it's so elusive. Like it's hard to recreate it for me.
Well, I guess, just kind of get into the topic here.
Speaking of going with the flow.
Well, you had my interest peaked because you had mentioned that you had been changing up your workflow lately. And I thought to myself after you said that, I didn't talk to you since then.
No, I was busy. Sorry.
And I found myself going, what the heck did you change up? What's going on in your studio?
Well, what's funny about it is that I got the idea from you because in the last episode you were talking about how, or we were talking about how you've changed your signal chain. You know, you've added some hardware, and every week I kind of have to change my template. I have I have a Doug vocal chain that I use for you, but I keep having to change it because it feels like every week you have a new like a new sound or a new improvement or something. And
Yeah, and yet again this week. So
yeah, it sounds so clear to me though. So like you're in the same room, which is great. But yeah, you know, I'm always looking for, I mean, you know me, I know I'm always looking for improvement. I'm always trying to self-improve. I'm always trying to improve my own flow, my own everything that I do. I'm always looking for process improvement. And I was specifically thinking about the fact that like once a year or so, I kind of take my working mix template and throw it out and start over from scratch, or at least overhaul it radically with whatever new plugins I've acquired or whatever new techniques I've got going on, so that so that it's all there at my fingertips and I don't have to think about it so much. And I'm in the process right now of a major workflow overhaul there, but and that's what I was thinking of originally. But you know what? I'm going through some other stuff too. Like I've again on after something you said when you said you kind of live out of your phone. And I was just kind of trying to wrap my brain around that because I so much live out of my computer and not my phone. And that's just the way I've always done it. And that doesn't mean it's the best way. And so one thing I did recently, and it was for me, a major life change. You remember we were talking about, I was cleaning up files on my computer and I was thinking about how much time I spend trying to organize things. And that goes for email too. Well,
right.
I ditched my email client that I've been using for like literally since the beginning of the internet. Like I started with Eudora. Do you remember Eudora?
Like Thunderbird or Eudora?
Yeah, it was it was Eudora. Then it got bought by Mozilla and became Thunderbird. And I've literally been using Thunderbird all of this time, a POP3 email client all of this time, since basically the early 90s. And I recently ditched it in favor of Web Gmail, which I've had that as well all this time. I mean, I've had Gmail since you had to be invited to join it. You know, you had to know somebody who would send you an invite to join it when it was a beta.
Yeah.
I've had Gmail that long, but I've never switched to webmail. It's not that I'm like a late adopter of everything. I just like to, I have a flow and I go with the flow until the flow doesn't work for me anymore, right? Or until
Right.
I find something. And there's like here's what I find. When you know that there's something better, it still has to be better enough that there's a transition cost. You know, how much better is it? Is it 10% better? Well, then it's not worth shaking up my entire workflow for. Is it 30% better? Well, that might be. So there's that trade-off. But I did finally decide. You're laughing, but I did finally decide that this is something that I do. So it's a big deal for me. So I'm like still trying to figure out how to organize one of the things that I spend most of my time on, which is email.
I see.
It's a big deal. It's a life change for
Email is such a pain in the butt,
It is.
and the vast majority of stuff that I receive, well, like I use email accounts in a utilitarian way.
Yeah.
And so I have the email account that I expect to get a bunch of junk. And I use it for signing up to most websites
Right.
and stuff like that. And I have a personal email
Mm-hmm.
that I use with friends and family,
Mm-hmm.
and some other stuff, where it's like of interest to me personally, that type of stuff. Um, cool guitar instruction stuff, sites or whatever like that, that I'm not worried about getting spammed or stuff. And then I have my business accounts, and I use Google for all of that. So I have the Google for Business as well as just regular Gmail accounts, like run of the mill, regular accounts.
Right.
And so I use the Gmail app on my phone, so I don't have to go to the web. And then I have all those accounts. And the Gmail app does a really good job of making sure that when you're replying to an email, you're replying from the account that the original was sent to, which was a big problem for me for a long time.
Sure.
Using email clients where you'd have multiple accounts on there, and reply to an email and it's from the wrong email
Right.
address,
Yeah.
which some cases, that I really wanted to use that junk email for that reply, and I sent out my business email by accident.
Yeah, that can be tricky. But they're all Gmail addresses, so that they all come to the same
Yeah,
app?
well, my Gmail for business is my own domain that's using Gmail servers.
Got it.
But that works with the Gmail app because it's the same,
Yeah.
And so, it's all my emails in the Gmail app on my phone for everything.
Yeah, my business email is actually a forwarder from my domain account, and then it just forwards to my Gmail.
Yeah, I mean, I managed my own email for a long time. I set up and ran my own email server on a CentOS box on cloud, and what a pain and dealing with spam and security and everything else.
I know.
I mean, it's not worth it.
I spent a decade as an email administrator running SendMail and all that anti-spam stuff. And oh my God, yeah, I'm so glad to not do that. But I'm glad that I still know how. It's still, peripherally part of my job, tangentially. But yeah, so that's a life work.
So tell me more about your template stuff, because I don't do like an annual thing. My template is a series of plugins, which includes my my insert, which is how I route out to my hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And when I create a new session, I have a template that has all the stuff that I like to use. I don't always use everything in it, and it just comes in with everything disabled.
Right.
And then I start from there, and I just, that way I just don't have to like go find stuff and add it into the session, so I just have everything there already.
Yeah.
And, when new things come up or whatever, and I like them, then I just pull them in, and next time I create a new session, before I do anything else, I save it and I overwrite my existing template with the new stuff that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I just continually modifying that as needed.
Right. Yeah, I more or less do that.
Yeah, so I don't really have an annual review type of thing that I do or anything like that.
That sounds kind of like my mastering template. What I've learned to do is I have multiple chains. I think I've talked about this before. I have my regular, track, and then I send it out. I always send out through a plug-in 2-bus, whether I'm mixing or mastering. That way I can have anything that I want to go straight out to 1-2, not go through the signal chain. And so what I've decided to do for my mastering is I have multiple kind of out buses to choose from with different signal chains on them, and then I just pick the one according to program material. And every once in a while, I get enough new stuff that I will just create a new chain. I leave the old ones there to choose from, but that's more straightforward. I'm thinking more of my mixing scenario where I have a lot of sub buses and routing. And last summer, I experimented with a Michael Brauer style sub routing that was marginally successful. It was a little overcomplicated, but it was a good idea. And then I kind of took ideas from that and turned it into more or less what I have now. But I'm kind of overhauling the plugins that I use and ditching the ones that I never use and sticking with new ones that I like a lot. And it's a process. So I've been doing a lot of practice mixes and masters lately just to kind of get used to the new plugins, the new workflow. Using a lot of Slate stuff right now. It's kind of cool. It keeps things fresh. It keeps me feeling like I'm on that exciting learning curve rather than in the doldrums, wondering if things could be better. Like I'm in that learning curve space where I'm like, knowing things are getting better, but maybe not. They're not fully honed yet. So it's kind of like a mental muscle memory that you have to develop. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I forgot to say I had fun with your little challenge from last time. I know it was kind of a joke, but I did it anyway because I said I would.
Oh, you did it?
Yeah, I put it at the end of the episode. It's kind of funny. I kind of did it as a joke, even though
So did you?
You'll see.
So did you like grab pieces from
Yeah, I grabbed this. I found the same words and I just spliced them in and level matched them. They don't sound exactly like
I can't
it's
wait to hear
almost
it.
like it's a little tongue in cheek, like you'll notice that it's not the same, but it's in the same spot. So it's kind of like one of those bad dubbings, but not really.
Did you put
The
that link up
continuity
yet?
is there, but you could tell.
Is that link up to listen to yet?
Uh, is it? Yeah, it's in the
Is it?
it's
Okay.
uploaded in Amazon.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I got to go check it out. I haven't had a chance to review it yet.
Oh yeah. Let me know if I need to rebounce. That would be good to know. So that's a bunch of stuff about my workflow, personal and music related. But the whole ball got rolling because you were telling me about pieces that you've added and how your workflow has changed. And I know you talked a little bit about it in the Patch Bay episode, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've done recently, what you've added, what you've changed in your workflow there in your mastering room?
Yeah. So the impetus of change for me has been going hybrid, which has been a goal of mine for a while, and to incorporate outboard gear as part of my audio production tool set. And that came with really a complete restructuring of workflow of my production process and how I set up my session. And the majority of the changes has been in routing, and that was really highly relevant to the patch bay stuff we had talked
Right.
about. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and I'm still learning. And I'm making some mistakes. There's things that I've discovered that were part of my old setup that I thought were working with my new setup, and as far as routing is concerned, and
Mhm.
discovered that my old setup was really way more complex than it needed to be.
Oh,
And I've really been able to simplify. And that came upon the realization that I had some duplicated signals,
mhm.
and especially in like the podcast setup. And
Extra heat.
yeah, and and that was causing some problems. As far as the audio production part, though, I guess I don't want to get so specific to my gear, but I have an AD and DA converter, all
Mhm.
right, and that functions as my interface as well. This one happens to be USB. There's other ones out there that are FireWire and so forth. It supports like AES, electronic digital, and ADAT, and it also has analog outputs and inputs on it.
Cool.
And the addition of the analog I/O is what's new for me.
Ah,
And how that incorporates into my workflow now is that I have to like bounce, you know, and learning the distinction between what's rendering versus what's bouncing or printing. I don't really have to print because I'm not working with like individual instrument tracks that need to be
okay.
processed and then go through and print those to a new track.
Right.
A lot of people will, in mixing, will do that because hardware is expensive. So you want to use that EQ or compressor. So you'll run a track through it and process it and print it. And now that it's printed, you can free up that hardware to use on another track.
Oh, I
You
see.
see what I'm
Yeah, that
saying?
makes sense.
And then
Yeah.
you can bring those together and group them, and then you can start processing groups. But you basically process, print, combine stuff. And you might take a group of tracks, and maybe you want to do some bus compression or something on that group, and so you'll do that and print. And it's kind of a destructive process, all right, because
Right.
once you have printed, then there's you're not really able to go back. And that's a kind of a difference in a digital workflow versus analog. But again, that's not really too important to me because what I'm more concerned with is just working in the one in the master bus. And so for me, it is how do I process and create a rendered file that has my outboard processing in it along with my inboard stuff, in the box stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, if I'm printing, it's because I have MIDI or something that I want to make sure is an audio file and not just data, so that there's no chance of getting out of sync, or I want to print effects. So that's a whole different way of thinking of it, for completely in the box versus hybrid.
Yeah. And I think I've made about every mistake that you can make in a very short amount of time trying to.
Well, that's how you learn, right?
Yeah. And, the documentation is pretty good, but it really doesn't help you in your specific situation. And so there's a lot of mad scientist stuff going on, and just trial and error. I think one of the things I have to laugh at myself about was, at one point it was a mix I was doing or a master I was doing of one of your mixes, which I still need to go back and work on. Sorry.
I didn't want to ask.
Yeah. And actually, I've got time for that coming up here. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, let's revisit that this weekend.
Okay.
But I bounced, and then I was. What was the mistake?
Oh, it was something about you thinking that it was
No,
it was rendered, but you had to do it through outboard, in real time or something like that.
Yeah, I was rendering, and I had the compressor on during rendering, and then I was playing back, and I was rerunning the process signal through the compressor again, not realizing it.
That makes sense.
And was doing the entire master according to what I was hearing there.
Right.
It sounded great, but what I delivered to you was absolute crap.
Now, I didn't say that. I want to point out that I didn't say it was absolute crap.
When I listened back,
I didn't think it was thin.
Like, what the heck?
I was like,
well, the funny part is
what I expected.
I listened back to it, and my playback was also going through the compressor, and it was like, hey, what the hell's wrong? It sounds great.
You're like, sounds good to me. What's the problem?
What are you drinking, man?
Yeah.
But yeah, when I realized that I was double processing the signal, then I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's
nice
funny.
mistake.
I kind of wonder. That probably comes up in an IT context and we don't realize it, where you're like, I don't see the problem. Looks good to me. And you're like, but I can't get to the network.
Yeah. Someone's out there going, what user would freaking do that?
Right.
Some QA person is like, really. So, yeah. So anyway, I've been making mistakes and learning from them. And the really cool thing about my setup is that I can create scenes, and these are routing scenes. And
oh yeah, I like that.
And so, like, I don't use my monitors during our podcast recording. I'm routing my audio into my headphones.
Yeah, same.
And during mastering, I am wanting to route out to my outboard gear. And so I have a mastering scene. And in my bouncing scene, as a result of my experience of double processing, I created a bounce scene, which does not run back through the processing. It runs directly out to monitoring, so that when I'm reviewing my bounces, not during bouncing, I do my bounces in my mastering scene, because then I bounce those in real time through the processor, and it records. It's basically recording the session as I want it to into a WAV file or whatever. And then my bounce scene is when I'm playing back my bounce, which then no longer routes to my outboard gear, and it routes directly to my monitoring. And I can just switch scenes like half a second, just click on the thing, and it does all the internal routing for me.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like one of those digital pedal boards where you can just preset different pedal setups and then switch between them.
Yep, it's a really good analogy to that. And like I was talking about the ES8, my Boss pedal switcher that I have, I think in the Patch Bay episode, and that is basically the functionality that's happening is you're able to pick and choose what all your routing is. Now, I'm still working on some things. I use an insert plugin, and that's just a stock hardware interface plugin in my DAW.
Okay.
However, I'm discovering that may not be needed because I can route via channels directly. So if I'm routing like USB 1 and 2, then I can send that 1 and 2 out if I want to processing. Or as I'm using it with my insert plugin, I don't want 1 and 2 because I'm using 1 and 2 for monitoring. And so I want monitoring to be after processing. And if I send monitoring to the monitors that I'm getting, and I'm also sending the same channels to the outboard, then I've got a wet signal and a dry signal, and I'm not listening. I'm listening to a dry
Right.
signal. So if I go outboard like channels 3 and 4 and return on 5 and 6, and then output to monitoring after that to 1 and 2, then I'm hearing my wet signal. So this has been
A
a
process.
process of just experimenting what happens. And I'll tell you what, with the compressor, it's one of the it would be a lot better to do this kind of thing with like a flanger or something so you can hear it,
Oh, so that was
yeah,
obvious.
because but you can do it with the compressor, just like crank the threshold down and and
Sure.
compress the crap out of it so that it's obvious. If you're
Right.
just trying to figure this stuff out in subtle compression, trying to hear that.
Which, by the way, is a great way to learn how to use a
Oh
compressor.
yeah.
To just crank the knobs all the way and see what it does, and then
Well,
you know,
that's how I set up my compressor for a session is I will set the attack and ratio of what I think it should be. And that's, uh, how do you get there? Well, you get to that point by messing with the compressor. But so I've messed with my compressor enough that I know what kind of ratio and attack that I want
yeah,
for what I'm doing. But then I'll take the threshold and hit the floor with a threshold because it's so exaggerated then, and turn up the makeup gain so I can hear it. All right. And then
mhm,
I can tweak my attack and ratio and release based on that over exaggerated compression that I'm hearing. And
right.
then back down the threshold and adjust the makeup gain to where it needs to be. And that works really well. And the reason it does is because that exaggerated compression allows you to hear the changes better to your attack ratio and release,
Right.
which in other, if you're just barely tapping on the threshold, those things are very, very subtle, and trying to really discern if you have the right settings, that's, you're going to have to do it. Then you're going to have to print it or bounce it and then listen back to it and then do that again. And that's really time consuming. So you can get closer faster just by exaggerating. So that's a trick.
Yeah, totally. And I was chuckling because I was thinking for some reason it made me think of yesterday. I was making an impromptu pork ragu out of leftovers, and I'm making, and it was not a recipe. I was just making it, and I was like, okay, what should I put in here, oregano or basil? And so I smelled the ragu, and then I took the thing of oregano and I took a deep whiff. And I thought, oh, that smells good, and I took a deep whiff of the basil. I thought, no, that doesn't smell good. So then I put in a little oregano. So it sounds like it's not unlike seasoning to
Yeah.
taste
I think that's,
when you're doing
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
compression
you're
stuff.
really, you're setting up this processing. What are your needs?
Mhm.
I've also got, with my setup, I've got a side chain, and so I can also bring that in through the patch and then do like high passing based on
Right.
what I'm sending into the side chain. So if I've got like a really bass heavy material that I'm working with and it's pumping real bad, and pumping is not desired in that particular song, so
Right.
sending in an EQ'd sidechain is now part of the workflow and part of that routing. And the neatest thing is being able to unplug my headphones and plug them into any point in my patch and hear what's going on.
Oh, that is cool.
If I want to catch something before before outboard processing, what's coming out of my DAW, I can do that, and then I can patch in, after compression or something like that, and compare it, and in about, with a switch of about, really just about as fast as I can switch on my monitors, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's really been, there's so much good about it. It's just been a challenge to get there, but now that
Yeah,
it's,
so I have 2
yeah,
questions. One is, this sounds like something that would make you need to, like, really sit down and diagram this out, like, either in a spreadsheet or literally make a drawing or some color-coded something. Say, "Okay, this is what I got. This is how things talk to each other.
yeah.
These are some scenarios." That sounds like something you need to do?
So, well, I've got, as far as the patch bay and the physical connections are concerned, I have a spreadsheet, and that's, it's all laid out in a spreadsheet. And then I don't have diagrams for impromptu things. Like if I want to do some custom routing for something, whatever,
Yeah.
then that's just me on the spur of a moment grabbing a patch cable and changing the actual physical analog routing stuff.
Right.
The digital routing is still all occurring in the IO assignments for, channels and things like that in the DAW. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then I also have the ADDA internal routing, and that's all set up on a matrix, and it's a touchscreen display. So I just go to the touchscreen and see what my settings are there and if I have questions on it. But really, that's what my scenes are about. I've done that work and I've created my scenes, and I don't have to, unless I make changes to something, physical, remove or add hardware or something. There's really nothing to update there once I get it set up the way that I want to. Okay. So now I can just go back to my matrix and look at that on the display of the AD and DA converter.
Yeah. So here's the burning question. This is the one that I had, and I almost brought it up when we talked about pedal boards briefly. Knowing that you had wanted a hybrid setup all along or for some time, did you have, I mean, this would be my thing. Do you have a list, like I need this and that, and then I'm done? Or is it kind of like, guitar pedals where you're like, oh, I need a flanger. Oh, I need a delay. Oh, I like this delay better. Oh, this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have a list that goes, okay, I need like an LA2A style compressor. I need a Pultec style EQ, and I need an 1176 style compressor and then an AD converter, and then I'm good. Or,
Well, I started out.
Is it kind of feels like a slippery slope?
Nothing's going to happen without that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you've got to have that, and that's, in my opinion, your centerpiece. It's the most important part of going back and forth between the analog and digital domains.
Yeah, totally agree.
So don't skimp in that area. Everything else, every plugin that I own is a simulation of what I want to have. So my list is actually
long
in my mastering template.
So you need a couple of LA2As, a couple of 1176.
Well, I'm not
two
really
black, two blue.
Yeah, that's okay.
A Fairchild.
I'm more like Alicia, or is it Elysia? And I'm really liking the Tegler audio manufacturer stuff. Mm-hmm. And there is, I think my next hardware acquisition will be the TK Audio Tikalizer 2, mm-hmm. or it's going to be the SSL Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not decided on which one. One of them's for color, which is the SSL Fusion.
Right.
And the other one is for parametric EQ and mid-side control and things like that. And I need to figure out which one is going to be more important to me first.
I noticed you said first.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't, for me, it doesn't happen all at the same time. So it's gonna, and there's a big gap in between each one.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see you just like get money in, set some aside, get some money in, get some aside, and start building your little capital expenses.
Yeah, my goal is to fill up my rack and then have the need to upgrade to a mastering desk with rack space in it.
You're going to build it yourself?
I'm going to use the frame of my existing desk and build a console top for it with all the rack space in it. So that's my plan. I like my desk. So I like my desk frame and stuff. So I want to figure out how to use it. Although it has a drawer, and I'll probably lose the drawer, and that drawer is part of my workflow. It's where it's where things that are causing messes on Anywhere go.
Yeah.
So that means I'll have to clean my drawer.
You can always get like one of those rolling drawers, and then it has a little surface on top.
Yeah. So right now, it's not optimum for me to turn and make adjustments and then turn back. So I find myself in weird postures sometimes.
That's
So
not
like,
always great.
got my head in the center position, but I'm like reaching, and everything's on my left here. That is causing, I would much rather be able to stay in the stereo field and make changes without my head moving. And really, I mean, that's for practical purposes of being able to make changes without moving back and forth in and out of the stereo field. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
because you can hear the changes better, you're in real time with it. And even having that 1 second pause in between where you get out of the stereo field, you make a change and come back in, that's a distraction.
Well, yeah, if it's a subtle change, you may not even hear the difference.
Yeah, that type of
thing. If you
thing.
go away and come back, even if it's short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I'll usually like make the change, come back and listen, then come back and put it back where it was, and then keep my hand on it so I don't have to look at it. And then make the change while my head is, because I can reach it without pulling my head out of the stereo field. I just can't see it without turning my head to look at it.
Yeah, that sounds like an opportunity to improve your workflow.
Yeah. Yep. I think it is. It is. And that comes with the cost of and time of building a desk. I've called around. COVID has put up some roadblocks for that, for some things that I'm interested in that I can't get, because one of the desks that I'd like to get is, where is it? It's like out of New Zealand or something like that. And they can't get it to the United States right now.
That makes sense. Well, I just came up with a parting tip. And the parting tip is, if you're looking to improve your workflow, regardless of what we're talking about, if it's your mixing, your mastering, your life, take a step back and figure out what your friction points are. And then ask yourself, what can I do to reduce friction in this area?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've got friction areas, and, when these things come, you don't discover this stuff by stepping back and looking at it. And as I kind of return to in this podcast over the years now is, Frank Herbert, and, a process cannot be understood by watching it. One must join and flow with the process. You have to actually be working in it to figure out what's wrong with it, and make improvements.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I didn't mean on the abstract. I meant like have a notepad at your hand and go, you know what? It would be good if I could do this. Because you may not remember later, but
yeah. And if it's something that only happens once and it's not a pain point,
then it's not really friction.
No,
I don't think.
It's the things I don't have to write down that are bothering me that are important, because I find myself, God, I got to do this again. I'm doing this same thing over and over again. This could be much better if I move this here, whatever the change may be.
Right.
Yeah. Look for those things. And if there's opportunities to make changes to improve those, that's what I'm looking for. So I definitely have opportunities, but I think learning and living in that, I think I've said this before too, but living with the friction, living with the not optimized process, and really getting to hate it to a point because you understand it so well, and understanding, you really get an understanding of what it's going to take to fix it.
Absolutely.
So it's okay, live with it for a little while and really get to know why you don't like it.
Yeah, that reminds me of a thing that a friend of mine said in passing that it just really stuck with me, which is, he said just one day, discomfort is underrated.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. You got to live with the discomfort in order to know what comfort feels like.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Everything's not perfect at resonance mastering, but we're always
or at Ragged Birds Music, but we're working on it.
There's always room for improvement. I don't think it ever gets perfect. And, I think it's the beauty of working in audio and with music is it's always new. There's always things to do.
And there's always opportunities for improvement.
Yep.
That's why we like it, right?
That's why I like it.
That's one of the reasons, for sure. All right, Doug, I think this turned out to be actually a pretty good episode after all.
Yeah.
Despite the technical challenges and other stuff.
What technical challenges?
No, I don't. I was going to say they didn't exist because they never happened, because I'll be editing all them out in post.
Yeah.
And if it's not in the final MP3,
listeners, if
it
you
never
only
happened.
knew
If you only knew.
The links we go to bring you the best quality audio.
Absolutely.
Because what was happening before that you didn't hear was absolute utter trash.
Oh, too funny. All right, man.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Always
thanks
great
so much.
talking to you.
Great talking to you too. Listeners, great talking to you. We'd like to hear from you too. So how about a review on iTunes? Leave us some comments. Hit us up on social.
Yeah, check in with us. So we love to hear from you anywhere, anytime. All right. Have a good week, everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks.
Cheers. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Indie Music Podcast. Please like and subscribe, share with your friends, or just leave us a review on iTunes if you like what you've heard. Find our social links and episode guide at indiemusiccast.com. Until next time, keep creating.
Salvaged another one.